Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. We've been on a pretty good run of quorums, huh? I'm happy for everyone's participation. All right, first item, business approval of minutes from November 4th. Have we had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
It was
Motion to approve?
almost exclusively
Second.
Wild Ridge. We have a motion and a second. Did you have a chance to record who that is?
Yes.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Fantastic. Moving on to, did we give enough time for the streaming to initiate, or did I jump the gun? Okay, perfect. Fantastic. Business item number 2, zoning ordinance amendment, infill lots and section 817. Mr. Haynes.
Sure. So this addresses everything that we've been discussing for the past, I don't want to say how long, a couple months. And so it addresses infill lots, specifically the double asterisks under section 603.0202 and 614.03 of the zoning ordinance. It eliminates the language discussing, I'll just read it word for word. It's a recap. Essentially, it removes the double asterisk that states, for minor subdivisions being developed within an existing subdivision, the developer shall use the most frequently occurring front setback, and the same shall apply for a single infill lot. It removes that double asterisk section, and it also revises section 817 for small setbacks for small lots of records. Has everybody reviewed that material? Do I need to read through it or explain it any further?
I reviewed it.
I mean, I'm happy to do it either way. The only, I guess, change is that it had a graphic in last month's information. Last month's packet had a graphic in it. All I've done is remove that from the example in section 5 of this ordinance.
Did you add the line in section 5, no subdivision of property shall have occurred since May 14th, 1979, or was that already in there?
That was in there last month.
Was it in what?
That was in the packet last month.
But it was in the original ordinance, or is that a
That's
division?
added, yes.
What's the reason?
Because technically that's what a lot of record would be. Any lot that was created before May 14th, 1979, whenever the zoning ordinance was first enacted.
Okay.
The staff had a chance to review this. Everyone agree? Okay.
Because I don't remember anything and would have to go back through the process again. Is there a brief way to, no, that's opening up too much mess. There have been iterative examples of existing small lots of record run against this proposed ordinance to make sure that it is enforceable and reasonable, right?
Where we landed on this, we really are, as far as the one I think we had most concern with was the small lot of record scenario and not complicating that. And I think that has been addressed to the point that the same outcome would be had with this ordinance as was with prior, so it did not create the issues. So there really wasn't a need to run those samples because we ended up in the same spot.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and in no case shall setbacks be reduced to less than 50%. That helped us from dialing it down to an acre in case it was too small. All right. What additional discussion, if any, do you all feel is appropriate for consideration or for voting and moving forward? I forgot also. And so this removes the reference of an infill lot entirely from our ordinance. So there is no interpretation of what that means.
Correct.
And so the question of what is a subdivision then, did that question get answered sufficiently for y'all's concern referencing? case y'all can't see, I'm referring to our BZA representative as well.
I think that answers the question, because without infill lots, we don't have to worry about what a subdivision is.
I think that's right. I think that's right. Feels clean. I pity the chairperson 7 years from now that has to reinterpret whatever we meant for whatever very specific and difficult situation they have to delegate over.
I move to approve.
We have
Second?
We have a motion and a second. At this point, there's discussion also still available? None? Okay. If we're ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? So this moves to council for their consideration. I like what we're trying to do. I think if you ask most of the people that I've come across and explained it as best as I can, the community seems to think that that's in the right direction. I just hope they understand what the taxable potential future implications are as services and inspections and administration continue to increase in the absence of meeting residential growth in the same way that Hamilton County did.
We'll live with it.
We will live with it. Very good. Okay, moving on to item number 3, zoning ordinance amendment, revising permitted uses in HCD. I'm ready to vote on that one now. I believe it involves
Some brew pubs?
social
brew pub,
social
yes.
gatherings.
Yes. that's
Yeah,
right.
good times and happiness.
Yeah.
All right,
We're
so
trying to bring
is
more.
Charlie the best person to introduce this one?
That's fine if you want to.
I will. I just, it came up, somebody asked me about the possibility of putting a brew pub on Signal. Not that this is going to happen, but they just wondered if they did, was it permitted? And I talked to Garrett about it, and I guess we have to add it to our ordinance, to our zoning to allow it. So I thought, it's got to go before the planning commission first, and if the planning commission doesn't want to do it, so be it. But if the planning commission says okay, then we'll take it to the town council, see if we can add that as a use.
And I'll add to that and state that the town's municipal code, specifically Title 8, I'm pretty 99% sure that's where I found it. It allows to sell alcoholic beverages in highway commercial district, but the district itself doesn't allow it. So that's where essentially the town's code allows for it. But we just have to, what I told Charlie was we'd either have to establish brew pubs in highway commercial district or breweries as a permitted use in highway commercial district.
Could you explain that again? What is disallowed?
Nothing. So the municipal code allows for selling alcoholic beverages
Correct.
in highway commercial district. It's just that the zoning ordinance doesn't specifically say breweries or brew pubs, which in my mind would not allow it. So.
You're saying because it's not
What?
specifically defined as breweries or brew pubs?
Right, and so my recommendation was it allows for restaurants. We could also establish breweries. That way, a brewery and a restaurant, same thing as a brew pub, or this option that I presented was for specifically brew pubs and defining what a brew pub is. Does that make sense?
And I think that
Yes.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, I wasn't sure why we had to define it. You know, why it wasn't allowed, because restaurants are allowed, selling alcoholic beverages are allowed.
It's manufactured.
Right, but it's creating alcoholic beverages
Yeah.
instead.
I think the manufacturing
Right.
aspect, and most brew pubs
Mhm,
also sell for off-premise.
correct.
So they're manufacturing, packaging, and selling, which is a completely different operation, especially when it comes out.
All right, okay. I
Yeah,
see
so
now.
the detail of that where sells the majority of its beer is not quantified, and beer is primarily for sale is not quantified, and is often dispensed is not quantified. And then where allowed, brew pubs often sell beer and or go to, distribute. So while all that's true, my hope for this would be, is it our intent to modify the alcohol restrictions when food and alcohol are being sold on premises, that the fraction of food and alcohol be revised?
I don't know.
I don't.
I just think it's, making sure that if you're gonna make beer on premises, you're allowed to do that, make it and sell it,
Yeah.
to customers on premises.
But our alcohol ordinance requires that they sell
Sell food.
50%?
No, I think it just says that you gotta sell food in conjunction with alcohol.
There's no
I
specific,
think it used to say that the majority of the revenue or something like that was from sale.
It's derived from food.
Mhm.
But I believe that's one of the things we changed fairly recently, in that it just they have to serve prepared food.
okay, we can, and we can,
If I'm not mistaken.
we can check that real quick.
Is that in this, package you gave us?
It was in the email. I don't know if it's in the pack.
Within the scope of this, I know that we're talking about changing this. Is there a desired facility that has already been identified? I mean,
No. I mean, somebody came to me and asked if you could do this on the mountain.
Well,
That's how it came up with me.
there's only 2 concentrations of highway commercial district.
Right.
So I did the measurements based off of the distances in the town municipal code and the Pruitt Market area,
Mhm.
that highway commercial district.
yep,
is the
that's
only one that-
HCD, yep.
That's the only one that would really allow it based on the distances of on-premise alcohol or beverage sale.
Unless you,
The number of brew pubs?
oh. Sure.
That's a good.
I mean, I don't know that we could
No,
limit the
we
number.
do not.
Well-
That wouldn't be constitutional for us to limit the number of, well, you'd have to have a health and safety reason.
Well, having known at least one person operating 8 keg selection of beer recently here on the mountain and finding it to be difficult economically with the community present, I would be shocked if someone else, a number of someone else's cracked the code such that there would be multiple of these. But I have heard of at least one operator in Georgia that has asked questions about our little town. And I don't know if they have actually any intent of doing that, but I think those kinds of guys just look for opportunities where they are.
Sure.
And so I don't know what the extent of intent. I don't think there's a letter of commitment or any money exchanged hands yet. So they can sell more than 5% alcohol by special permit from the council, which almost everything is now.
I believe we also changed that, we upped the alcohol content to 8, I guess, 8. Is that the state limitations changed, so we offer that as well. And anything other than beer is permitted through the state.
Well, that's one thing I thought of. I was looking up other ordinances allowing brew pubs, and one of them didn't limit it to beer. They basically called it, where is it? They just said an eating place in conjunction with the facility in which beer, wine, or other alcoholic beverages are brewed, fermented, or distilled for distribution and consumption. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of brew pubs that make something other than beer, and I don't know if we need to change that, make it more broad now, or deal with it if it comes up later. But ours is just beer.
Who is the beer board? I was gonna say, why haven't I been invited to be on that?
It's the decisions are made only after a tasting.
We're gonna initiate a coup tonight. We're taking over the beer board. Planning Commission is incorporating in new duties.
Yeah.
I hadn't found it yet. I hadn't found the fraction of food and alcohol.
Does anybody know what provision that is?
So Garrett, if somebody wanted to put a brew pub in the commercial highway district currently, you would deny the request to do that based on what's allowed for.
I wouldn't specifically recommend denial for it. I'd bring it to you guys and let you, the planning commission, make the decision. Basically, give me the information that it allows for restaurants, but not the actual manufacturing of alcoholic beverage. So I would likely bring the same situation up. I'd recommend, I'd recommend including land use for it.
And we don't need to include the term of microbrewery or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just a brew pub that's all encompassing.
Right, for the type of request that I received, yes. Which is essentially a restaurant with a brewery on site that sells.
So that brew pub right now would only be able to sell beer. They would only be able to manufacture beer.
Right.
Just,
As it's worded, they would only be able to make and sell beer. But is there anything in the language that would prohibit them from being otherwise permitted so that they could also have bars? That would come through the state. We wouldn't have any.
well, you would, I mean, you're saying,
That is allowed now
right,
if you're selling food.
I guess
Correct.
that would be part of the restaurant side.
So we would allow it as a brew pub, which would include the restaurant operation and the beer manufacturing. Since there is a restaurant operation, they should then also be able to be permitted through the state to sell other alcohol.
not manufacture.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing I was mentioning, is that should we broaden the definition to allow the manufacturing
sale
of alcoholic beverages generally, which would include more than just beer? If you made your own wine. or
Do you want a
made your own-
moonshine distillery on the mountain?
It's part of a restaurant. If it's legal, I guess it's okay.
I'm throwing it out there. I don't have a,
I mean, I don't care if we limit it to beer. If somebody came later and said, well, I wanted to make my own wine and sell it, then we would just have to consider whether we should change it then, if we didn't do it now.
right.
So, and that's certainly a possibility. So we either broaden it now or we keep it as it is, to beer, and deal with it down the road if it ever comes up.
Is there a reason not to go ahead and include it now?
Well, I mean, maybe like Eddie said, if somebody wants to make moonshine, if we don't want moonshine made on the mountain, I guess.
I'm not saying that I don't want it. I'm not, I drink my fair share of Jack Fire and others, so I'm okay. Strike that from the record, Sam.
That's
But-
included, that's going in.
Well, we
We're
can
gonna edit
sell,
that,
serve beer
creatively.
and liquor
Vote.
and wine on the mountain,
Yeah,
in
but
any
you-
restaurant, we can sell it all.
Mhm.
I'm good with beer and wine. I say we open it up now.
That's
I'm
why I'm
okay
just saying,
with
why
that.
not open it now?
Staff, is any concern?
But where are you opening it? Through what facility are you opening it in?
A brew pub.
A brew pub.
The manufacture of, if we were to include the definition that we
Alcoholic.
expand upon to include beer and wine.
Hmm.
And at least limit it to that, because in the town now, you can sell beer and wine.
Mhm.
Now, I don't want somebody to come up with a Ripple distillery or moonshine or a Jack Fire knockoff. I don't know that that's appropriate, but beer and wine, I think that's got some merit to it. It broadens it a little bit.
What about Mad Dog?
No,
No?
no. Kiwi lime?
I guess,
Hit a chord.
yeah, I guess I'm just wondering why, I don't know that I see a real need to add brew pub. It seems like we want to add the ability for establishments within this zoning district to be able to also manufacture, package, and sell, which gets me back to the current like a current restaurant that's approved to sell liquor, wine, and beer. And there, I thought that there was a fraction, maybe there's just a suggestion that they,
It looks like the language. in
But the
packet
definition
is
says you can sell.
Ah.
And I think when we updated that, MTS is still codifying
okay,
some of our changes, so they're on the website, but they're not embedding it into the ordinance itself yet. We're doing that now, but, I'm almost positive when we change that whatever the wording was, that the majority of their sales had to be food,
mm-hmm,
was changed so that they could sell alcohol, provided they sold prepared food.
okay,
So it's just keeping it from being an all-out bar. They also have to sell prepared food for consumption.
okay. So my question would be, I guess just as a point of discussion, is it, hello there? Is there any benefit then to adding language that says brew pub, or do we achieve the same thing by simply adding the ability for restaurants within the zoning district under the existing definitions to also manufacture and package?
I see what you're
And
saying.
that would
Either,
open
you're
it up
accomplishing the same
to
thing.
Any
You're saying to
alcoholic
expand the
beverage.
restaurants.
That would open up to any kind of alcoholic beverage, beer, wine, or liquor.
Well, it's still
I think
got,
the
it
manufacturer
still
though.
has a percent cap. So wine and beers around that 8%, if that got changed, any kind of liquor that's even cinnamon apple moonshine's 12, 15, it's 30, 40 proof. So it would still get caught there. So liquor, I don't think is ever going to be, I don't think it's really our goal to distill that unless, you know, some distiller wanted to move here and use Rainbow Lake water in their process, you know, right? But say, yes, Rainbow Lake, Tennessee whiskey wanted to show up here, that would be an entirely separate application, right?
What we're looking at is what uses are allowed in the district.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, we list certain types of operations in whatever district, whether it's hotels, restaurants, convenience stores, veterinary clinics, whatever, we put a name to the operation,
Yeah.
and then as necessary, define it. My concern would be if we say you can do these things in this district, we don't actually have the authority to tell someone that they can operate the distillery. The state regulates that, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
We're just saying this type of operation is allowed in this district. Does that make sense? I think there is a difference in being consistent with how other things are listed and minimally defined, I think is probably the wiser approach.
And I'm not arguing either way. I think either one are fine to achieve the goal, especially since if the language has been changed where the majority, or in my mind, I'm going to say 51% of your revenue comes from food. If that's gone, then yeah, you can add brew pub. And then they don't have that metric to hit, because I think that would be a brew pub wants to come to Signal Mountain. That's great. Can you do that? Yes, in HCD. Okay, how do you do that? Well, 51% of your sales are food. That's a non-starter, right? Probably. It's hypothetical. Whereas I want to start an entity in HCD and it has the permission to package and sell liquor, then I can kind of float between restaurant, brew pub, winery, whatever that's going to be. You see these wineries that are repackaging wine, they all have pizza. Every one of them buys a pizza. And it's got to be to hit zoning.
It's for zoning.
It's all zoning.
Georgia Winery right there.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, everything's, because I guess it doesn't cost much and you can overcharge for the pizza and get your stats up. So if that stat, I mean, I think that's to me, in my mind, that's the big linchpin in the effectiveness of the operation within the district is,
But the definition that we would have would possess, operate significant food services that sells the majority of its beer on site.
yeah, I'd want to really tweak that language and kind of get
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, probably majority dialed into a something somebody could
But if we
actually
don't
plan
have
off
that
of.
language within our statute of the other restaurants, how could we enforce it for a brew pub?
It's a brand new definition.
Staff?
What's the question?
Of reining in that if there was a brew pub that sells and operates significant food services, can we define that? And then the better question is how do you measure it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's,
Well, and why do we want to?
Well, they just have to meet they just have to meet the requirement for a restaurant.
Yeah, but can that restaurant sell Snicker bars, packaged chips, and and I'm not being facetious, hot dogs, and that qualify as a restaurant?
if they prepare the hot dogs on site. Now I think
Yeah.
I think for all positive, that's where we landed. They have to prepare food there for consumption.
Can you have a hot dog
If they
stand in
do
HCD
that, then they can have a,
that also sells beer now? Because
So to Jamie's point, though, you raise a good point. So you're saying if you had a hot dog stand in HCD and that was permissible, you could sell beer with it? Say that again, Sam?
I believe.
I'm sorry. I don't want us to get off a tangent. I just think you raise a good point about the food.
yeah,
Yeah, it may also be minimum seating requirement.
Well, that was my next thing is there's going to have to be seating requirements that fit within the restaurant. So you would have to have an occupancy rating, right? Mr. Martin?
Yes,
Okay.
it's hard to recall, because some of it has to be in a state, and some of it's.
what's that?
Well,
If
let
it's
me just add this, okay? I was looking at different ordinances from other places, and the one I read where they, broadened it to include beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages, they said it's an eating place, and the eating place, the E and P are capitalized, which means that's a defined term somewhere. So obviously, that would be like saying a restaurant, if we have a definition of what a restaurant is, or a requirement for a restaurant. I mean, you could say that whatever it is has to meet that definition first. So it would have to be a restaurant or a business that qualifies as a restaurant, and then also can make its own alcoholic beverage. So
you're saying that's a safer way to create the definition?
well, I mean, I think that makes
Or that just
sure
puts
that
more
it's going to
parameters
be
around it, that it's a sit-down restaurant?
it's going to be a
It's not a hot
restaurant
dog stand that
first.
sells beer.
Right.
If we allow a restaurant to sell beer, if they sell Snickers bars and hot dogs, then the brew pub should be able to do that too. They just make their own beer and sell it, right? I mean, if we allow a restaurant to sell beer and all they're doing is making hot dogs and Snickers bars, then a brew pub should be able to do the same thing. So whatever our definition of restaurant is, or
So we're just talking about
requirement.
really a restaurant that can make and
Yeah,
sell their own beer.
Yeah.
That's the only change we're entertaining here, is a place of business that can make their own beer
And sell it.
or wine.
But I liked your
And-
idea
and-
of why is that even important? Because my two favorite places to go down, Hutton and Odd Story, neither one sell food at all. They package and sell on site,
But I think
But
those
I
are
think-
defined as, are they not?
brewery,
Brewery.
but they have, I don't know how it's defined, because a brewery wouldn't necessarily have occupancy and seating for people and have restroom requirements and egress and the rest.
There was obviously some reason
But they've got seating
bars were not
requirements.
wanted up here, standalone bars, and I would think that would qualify more of as a
Right.
standalone bar.
Okay.
And, I mean, if we want to change everything and add standalone bars, that's one thing, but if we don't,
Okay.
then we make it a brew pub.
Okay.
Um,
I'm getting closer to where you come from. I can see that.
Yeah,
Let's just tighten up on significant food services,
yeah.
and I think I'd be okay with this. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I
think
agree with
we all
you.
agree with you there.
And are we sticking with beer only or beer and wine?
I've never actually been to an actual production. I've been to a packager and a bottler, but I don't know that I've ever been to a small wine maker that also sells food. What's an example of that?
I think to Charlie's point, do you want to address it now or just leave it at beer and talk about it some other time if we cross that line? Because you raise a great point, Charlie.
I don't know, wine pub sounds awesome.
So
Charcuterie boards and wine, they're packaging on site, it's like made
I've
here.
got my own charcuterie board, and I'm crazy about that. Are you guys okay? I mean, Marcia, you've
I'm
got,
okay with either way.
yeah,
I'm fine.
staff? Any preferences, Mr. Martin?
What's the current stuff? You have to have seating.
Right. So to your point, with some type of seating capacity or some type of definition within that,
Mm-hmm.
that would maintain alignment with a normal restaurant? I don't know, to expand that definition, I just don't want us to get caught with someone going, well, you didn't say this, and I've got 2 seats here.
Where is,
There's a real concern there too. I think it would almost be better to have someone who is potentially interested in it come.
To bring it forth
Mhm.
versus setting yourself up?
Yeah, let's just,
Hmm.
we really don't know until it happens.
And that's my concern is where's the what if?
Mm. Where is the seating, where does a new facility get hooked on the seating capacity? Is that like parking? Is it in the zoning?
I can't remember where it is, but I think it's like a minimum of 25 seats.
I think it was in, yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we ask Garrett to go back and kind of reword this to incorporate that somehow where whatever it is, a brew pub has to meet up whatever requirements would be
Of a restaurant.
met for a restaurant to sell alcohol, and take out some of the language that's vague, like significant food services. Where, right, but I mean, I think if we just reworded this to say,
But
You
is
know,
that, go ahead, Charlie, I'm sorry.
an a brew pub is a manufacturer, meets the definitions of a restaurant and is permitted to manufacture beer or wine or both for sale on premises.
I think if we go with, I would say that if we go with brew pub, that we don't say like a restaurant, that more along you offer food services, and then have some definition that it's actually prepared there. Like they don't buy 2 cases of Snickers, they actually cook the hot dog.
But to your point, is the origin of this, is there a specific request at this point to add the language? Or to Ethan's point, are we, and I don't want to overthink it, but are we better off just to wait and see if it comes?
Because we can still hear it, right?
Then you can hear all the parameters of what they're going to do, seating capacity.
Right,
I mean,
so,
If that were to happen, though, I don't think in this case, the mechanism.
We'd even.
You couldn't deny it.
right, it's not like we require
You
a site.
can give them a variance and let them do it. If they come and
Well, I don't,
proposal to you, and you say, yeah, we like this, then you're left to go through the 3-month,
right.
2-month
right,
process of seeing if it will be approved by council. Someone with a business proposition may not be in a position to push that.
I don't really see this as being,
It's
I
really
think
not
we're
any
overly
different than right
complicating
now,
it.
though,
I think
because-
we're overly complicating it. I don't see it as being that complicated. If you can have a restaurant and you can sell beer and wine, all we're doing is saying you can also make it on premises and sell it.
I'll go for that.
And I mean, it seems like as long as you meet the requirements to be able to sell beer and wine on premises, you should also be able to make it. And I think that if we had something that kind of brought in the definitions of what it takes to be able to sell beer in your restaurant, then that would satisfy all these requirements.
Any restaurant may sell premises manufactured beer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the problem we're dealing with is we don't know what the requirements are for restaurants to be able to sell alcohol. So what I'm saying is, let's ask Garrett to go back and find that and reword this and bring it to us the next meeting with a different definition, or, you know, an updated definition.
So we just want to expand on the ability for a restaurant not only to sell alcohol, but manufacture their own alcohol and off-site premise or brown bag, right?
Right.
If you put too many parameters, you make it too expensive to start. I mean, if you've got to have a 25-seat restaurant and whatever.
But I think I think you got to have a blend of both to meet the town expectations. Versus, I mean, going back to your point, Charlie, do you want a bar? No.
You have bars and
You've got El Matate.
There are people that don't want a bar, and I respect that.
we call
We do
it
have a
pub.
duty.
Hmm?
We do have a duty. Don't go there.
I think Brenda's wanting to create a new type of restaurant that's a pub instead of a restaurant.
Well, it's not new.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, new to our code.
Dirty Nelly's wasn't new, and it was a fantastic
No.
restaurant.
New to our code.
We discovered the
See if we can get
Garrett, can
a
you
state
shore
of
up that?
Tennessee like sign on
And
the home
make
of
some more
home of the brew
expansive
pub.
language that integrates the two between a restaurant that can manufacture their own beer. and
So
wine.
just for clarification,
Oh.
primarily restaurant.
Hold on
correct?
now, which way did we go? That's not where I thought we were headed.
I thought that's what he said, was to expand the
That's
language.
not what he
so-
said. He said we're making it too difficult, and we should keep the definition of. I'm putting words in y'all's mouth. Keep the definition of brew pub. We'll iron out the significant portion. Operate.
I thought we were
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
gonna
define
answer.
what the restaurant was that sells alcohol.
No.
and/or
What
manufactures.
all right, let me
My,
just say.
my
I just-
observation
Mayor Fox-
was.
Please
Why can't we
restate your
hear from
position. I want to hear this one.
Can't we hear from them?
Okay.
No, I mean, we can have everybody's interpretation.
We're gonna go through the process anyway.
All I was suggesting was that we should just make it so that whatever requirements there are for a restaurant to be able to sell alcohol, we take those requirements and add the ability to manufacture it and make that our definition of what a brew pub is.
Okay. Now I got you.
Huh?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'll support that.
All right.
And is staff good with that? Boyd, Chuck, okay.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it more, but I think we're all kind of stumped with what requirements are there to be able to sell alcohol on premises at a restaurant, and I think we need to know
Who
that.
enforces what operating significant food services is?
I think we'll get rid of that language.
No,
Get-
at this point, because we don't have that requirement. And that was some of the discussion about, you know, having the majority of your revenue come from, is anybody?
Yeah, whoever measured that.
And I think that's why when we redid it, it simplified.
Right.
because you have to offer prepared food for consumption on premises, something along those lines. And it
Well,
very much simplified.
And the beer board, the beer board's going to maintain oversight as well.
But if that's the new language, that sounds ideal for this. Prepares, fresh food, however you said it, on site. As long as you're
we can
doing
integrate
that,
the two, I'm good with
you
it.
got a kitchen, you got fire protection, you got all of those things.
Because if you have a fryer kitchen, you're going to have a hood. It's, to Brent's point,
Microwave.
but you're going to have some type of
Right.
significance to it.
My favorite brew pubs have kettles. Excellent. So what are we voting to do then? Revise the language, bring it back next meeting,
Right.
and we'll move it on along.
Correct.
Ethan, would you like to see some examples of brew pubs from around that, like,
I'm good. I'm okay.
man, that'd be amazing. I'd love to have something up here.
Yeah.
We need to bring, like, what's the little spot on River Drifters? We need a River Drifters up
Oh, they're
here,
not that good.
but we need them to
Okay.
make beer and to be about a half of their footprint
I
size.
have a
I
River
think
Drifter
that,
story for you that may not set well with you one day.
We'll discuss that offline. Well, we got,
I think that Signal Mountain Laundry would make a great little brew pub.
You're
I
about
think
the
you
eighth
do the
person
environmental
that I've
clearances on
heard
that building,
Yeah.
and I'll brew the beer for you.
Sounds
We'll
like
put
a
a
plan.
drive-in
Yeah.
through. Oh my gosh.
Man, if we could do a drive-in daiquiris like South Louisiana, oh my gosh.
Do my Fat Tuesdays, that type, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I was just down there last 2 weeks ago.
I'm headed there Thursday.
All right.
All right.
So we'll wait on that language. The amendment, we'll look at that in January.
That's great. Does anyone have any other discussion on the business item?
No, I don't.
Oh, no? Anyone? No? Item number 4, are there any persons here or staff otherwise having business for the commission? Well, I think we have to at least add one final business item, and that's recognizing the service and the camaraderie and the friendship that we have from our departing and retiring town manager.
Round of applause.
Here, I think that deserves a standing ovation.
Yeah, I agree. I do hereby declare as whatever power I have vested in me that we will be eternally grateful for the leadership you've granted each of us. I know I've learned a huge amount about city government and town administration, to the extent that you had any idea what you were doing. I will carry on. That's
Although I think it's better well said, Mr. Chairman, of what he was getting into.
what he was getting into. Very, very well. But no, we do really appreciate you, Boyd. And
You guys, it's literally, it's been an honor to serve with this group and those before you. Definitely good work on the town, and I appreciate you guys.
absolutely.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.